were in an era just 5 to 10 years ago where every time I went to the movies, I was afraid of another Sucker Punch. I was afraid of another movie about Christians preventing people from dancing and stuff like that. And now we're getting to the point where they're almost consciously avoiding politics in a lot of mainstream fare. There are some exceptions. You do see The Martian and NASA clearly colluding on NASA putting out information to coincide with the launch of a Matt Damon movie. So that era is not completely over, but it certainly seems to have changed. But part of it is also the rise of this do-it-yourself culture, where there's cord cutting. People are running away from cable television. They're using Netflix primarily. Young people, in particular, are looking more at 6 to 10 minute YouTube videos than they are necessarily broadcast television.
I met Andrew on the USS Reagan, Ronald Reagan, when they had a thing, I think, in the early 2000s. And he knew that I was politically outspoken because the New York Times had done an article on a group that we had started in Hollywood called the Sunday Night Club, which was before, it was just getting together conservatives. This was like around 2002, 2003, and some other articles. And we had a discussion in terms of how culture, of course, it really guides politics and shapes thinking.
First of all, I just want to take the opportunity to say that it's a pleasure being on stage with Milo, because this finally answers all the Twitter questions. Milo is not me when I'm out at night, and I am not Milo when he's on download. But as far as Alex's question,
I'm Vampire Shapiro.
Yeah, exactly. and I'm the fulfillment of your dream to procreate homosexuals through. But
if you say so.
That
went over my head, by the way.
We call Ben Milo West.
Yeah, exactly.
Breitbart offices.
But when it comes to the amount of bias in Hollywood, obviously there's a tremendous amount of bias in Hollywood. It still exists. It's quite open, actually. You just have to be a leftist in order to see it, because they won't. People who discriminate typically don't tell people who they're discriminating against that they're victims of discrimination. They tend to instead tell that to their friends. So when I wrote the book, Primetime Propaganda, what I did is I went undercover as a leftist, basically, which actually wasn't too hard because everybody in Hollywood is a massive egotist and also too stupid to use the internet. So that's an excellent combination. So what that meant for me is that I just emailed all these top flight directors and producers in Hollywood and executives, and I said, my name is Ben Shapiro, and I'm a Harvard Law School graduate, and I live in Los Angeles, and I'm doing a book about the best known names in TV. And they didn't bother to Google me, and they figured, okay, last name is Shapiro, from LA, went to Harvard Law School. There's a 99.99999% shot that he is to the left of Trotsky.
Too good to check.
Yeah, and so I went in, I did the interviews with them. I explicitly asked them if I could tape the interviews, and then when I asked the questions, I asked them like a leftist would ask. So instead of asking, do you discriminate against conservatives, it would be, don't you feel an obligation to keep closed-minded conservatives, religious conservatives out of the business? And they say, oh, absolutely, we feel the obligation to do all these things. And many of them said this, and they're all on tape, they're all on YouTube. We released all of the tape. And that hasn't changed. It's not going to change, because in Hollywood, it's not a question of leftist versus conservative. It's a question of human versus not human. You either agree with the people in Hollywood, which makes you a human, or you disagree with the people in Hollywood, which means that you are somewhat less than human. And the typical kind of litmus test right now is gay marriage. If you are pro-gay marriage, then you are a wonderful and decent human being. If you are anti-gay marriage, then you are a Nazi. And you will not work. I mean, there are certain positions you can hold as a conservative. Abortion is getting closer to acceptable in Hollywood if you're pro-life. But if you are somebody who believes that traditional marriage is superior to homosexual marriage, then that is obviously springing from your inherent bigotry, and you must be cast out like a leper. So there are always these sort of red lines in Hollywood that you can't cross. And obviously everything that Robert says is true about all jobs being social in Hollywood. If you don't get invited to the cool kid parties, then it's hard for you to find a job.
Milo is an example of a doer. He's someone who's a multimedia person who's starting various different types of ways of getting the message out. And I wanted to get to end on sort of a positive note here. What can people in this room do? What can people who are cultural actors and cultural observers, what can they do in the year 2015 in terms of pushing these values in a way that's entertaining and fun, and like Robert said earlier, maybe not as quick to get angry as conservatives have done in the past?
Yeah, conservatives always had a problem. We like to talk about the left being earnest and angry, and humorless. Actually, it's a criticism just as valid of us. Whether or not you're conservative or libertarian, the culture is moving, believe it or not, in a good direction because Hollywood is dying. There is some nice TV stuff going on, but basically 2 generations hence, it's going to be video games, and video games have those intensely, integrally conservative and libertarian values baked into them, and there's very little that you can do to break that. However much messaging, however many paraplegic Armenian lesbians you put on level 17, there is a limit. There is a limit to how many leftist tropes and messages you can shoehorn into a game about killing prostitutes or shooting down space aliens, and that's by and large what most gamers like to do. So the trajectory of entertainment for me is moving in a positive direction. The risk is oversized influence from a small number of people who have huge purchase on the media. And these are, the elite cultural critics, a very small number of people who exist, sort of obstruct communication between video game publishers and developers and the ordinary public. And I sort of hit on this a little bit earlier. If you want some sort of tips to deal with these people, number 1 is laugh. Number 2 is use their own weapons against them when they come at you and call you names, misogynist and racist and sexist, for enjoying, mediums that simply provide personal agency and which recognize the fact that people quite like seeing hot naked people and people quite like blowing things up. And when you do all of that and get it out of your system, the science suggests you behave better in real life, not worse. All of these common sense things that we're all going to come to enjoy, and all our kids are going to come to enjoy when they come criticizing all of this. The 2 things that they can never answer are: 1, show me an example of this and where it's done some damage. What's your research? And 2, they go running for the hills when you start turning their own methods against them, and they've called you a misogynist and sexist and all the rest of it. Laugh out loud, call them a ridiculous, preposterous social justice warrior. Characterize them, characterize them as what they are: nannying, pearl clutching, fainting couch, school marmish social justice warriors. And they go running for the hills in seconds. It's really not that hard. I'm very optimistic about the future.
Well, let's talk about Trump for a second. I know a lot of you guys on the stage, not Ben, even though Ben is falsely accused of this routinely, but I know, Davi, you're a Trump supporter. Milo, you're a Trump supporter, though I don't recommend you try to vote here as your boss. And if you do, you should do it multiple times, because if it's already...
I bought some hats. Have I broken the law
no,
by buying his hat?
I don't know.
I bought some Trump swag,
it's up for debate.
I'm wondering whether...
But do you guys attribute his success, let's start with Milo first, to his cultural relevance?
One of the defining characteristics of millennials, of the internet generation, of people on 4chan, 8chan, Reddit, people, the gamer culture, the anonymous culture, one of the most defining characteristics is that as a healthy sense of mischief and joy, fun, ridiculing the establishment, ridiculing sort of ossified elites. I think it's happening on the right and the left, in the UK and the US. You've got Corbyn and Farage in Europe. You've got Trump and Sanders here. Trump is the perfect embodiment. He's almost, in a way, sort of the internet's choice for president. He's kind of like a comment section come to life. And I mean that as a compliment, because what I mean is he's feisty, he's irreverent, he's rude. I mean, I think the guy's brilliant. He speaks like we all speak. If only we could get away with it, and if only we didn't have to watch so much of what we say.
And ironically, we don't speak that way in fear of people not liking us, but it seems like more people have liked him because of it.
Well, look at the figures who are rising and who are more popular than ever. They are popular because they reject the language policing of the left. They are popular because they've realized, and it's something that I've realized in my journalism and in my outrageous and Twitter feed, which you must not follow because it's far too offensive. But if when they come at you and they call you a misogynist and a racist and a transphobe, nothing bad happens if you just laugh at them. Nothing bad happens. In fact, people will like you even more. And I think Trump's tapping into that natural sense of sort of defiance and mischief and irreverence that people now feel because they feel so distant from the people who rule over them, whether it's people who create entertainment or people in politics. Trump is tapping into that, and I don't know if I really want the guy in the White House. I don't know about that, but the Trump project, what it represents, and the bloody nose it's giving the establishment is something that I can, without reservation, applaud.
Robert, why do you like Trump so much?
Well, first off, there's an authenticity about him that has been lacking out of politics. I've been watching it, studying politics and politicians since I was a kid. Me and my cousin did Saturday Night Live skits before. We did Jon Stewart, and my cousin has a political science theory degree in Dostoevsky and all this other stuff. So we used to talk politics quite often. William Buckley as opposed to, Robert Wagner. I mean, the whole thing. So what happens to me is, I've seen politicians speak. If I ran down them as I was an acting coach, and I was looking at these politicians like I was an acting coach, and they've all said the same thing. One speaks like a Harvard law degree, I'm sorry, that's been well prepped. Not you.
That's okay, no.
Brilliant. I'm not talking about you.
For all of us.
No, I know. But I mean, and I've heard them say the right things and do nothing. Get in office and do absolutely not a thing. Trump captures the imagination of the public.
Conservatives will whine about the culture. Will whine every time Lena Dunham is on TV. Will whine every time an avatar comes out and promotes anti-military environmentalist crap. But then conservatives put $0 into actual entertainment, zero focus into defending areas that, even if you just want to say, let's make it apolitical, like video gaming, it doesn't have to be overtly conservative. In fact, if it's overtly conservative, it tends to make the product worse.
No, when I talk to groups of young people, I always say, if you are just a neutral voice, if you go into academia or the media or Hollywood and entertainment, if you're just neutral, you're part of the solution.
That's right.
Because you don't have to be a far right winger. But
I think the news is slightly better than that, actually, because I think video gaming as an active medium is sort of inherently libertarian. It's a lot to do with personal agency, and a lot of the leftist narratives about social conditioning, about gender and race being social constructs, about the socialization of everything, about the state being the best provider of solutions rather than individual responsibility and agency. A lot of those things are quite counterintuitive to gamers who have experienced an entertainment medium that relies on self-determination, self-reliance, that punishes them for failure, that rewards them for success, that rewards people for hard work, determination, for imagination, for thinking. These are inherently conservative and libertarian values.